Let's introduce our speaker. I met with Cara, I was months ago now at Hub 101. We've met a couple of times. And I have to say, I've met very few people who were as authentic as Cara, and was honest about what worked and what didn't. But most importantly, she has such an incredible story. We're all faced with these problems and challenges in our lives, and our reflex reaction too often is to just try to live with them and soldier on. And it's that rare person who, during whatever chaos there is, says, wait a minute, I've got a better way to do this. And that's at the heart of so many great startups. And I believe that Baby Barista is one of our next great startups. So without further ado, Cara Armstrong, please tell us about Baby Barista.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you to Cal Lutheran for inviting me to speak during this entrepreneurship speaking series. I'm especially excited about being here for Women's Entrepreneurship Week. Being a female entrepreneur is challenging, it's inspiring, it's a daily struggle, but it's a good struggle. And so women everywhere are making incredible strides when it comes to entrepreneurship, but we also have a very, very long road ahead of us. There's many challenges to face every day for the female entrepreneur, but tonight, I just want to look at our glasses half full. So I'm going to share with you tonight my origin story, 5 lessons that I learned as an emergency room nurse that actually helped me to slide over pretty seamlessly into my role as CEO. I'm going to share with you the David versus Goliath narrative that seems to be a theme in my personal life, but it's also emerged as a theme in our business and what my team is doing to face giants. I'm also going to talk about my passion, or my why. I think it's really key to have a meaningful why if you're going to have a successful business. And I'm going to share a few fun facts about female entrepreneurship, some not so fun facts, and finally, I'm going to welcome your questions. Typically, when I pitch a VC or investor, I paint the picture of standing in my tiny little kitchen, holding my baby daughter in one arm, and struggling to assemble the contents of a bottle with my one free hand. But what I don't share is that there was a bigger struggle going on inside of my heart at the time. And I was in a deep, dark place. My emotions were all over the place. And so I think sometimes when companies start to experience a little bit of success, everybody thinks that everything was smooth sailing all the way through, but that's not really true. And sometimes great innovation comes out of great struggle. So as a nation, we all know that we're facing a huge challenge right now, maybe the darkest time that I can remember in my own life. And if history is a predictor of the future, I'm going to just take a chance and say that we're going to see some amazing innovation come out of this very dark time. In 2008, when we had the economic recession, I'm sure that entrepreneurs weren't thinking, oh, this is a perfect time to start a company. But I have a list of companies that I'm going to share with you that came out of the 2008, 2009 era. And I'm sure they've touched your life personally. Venmo, Instagram, Uber, Pinterest, Slack, and Square were all companies that recognize that there's no perfect time to start a company. And so tonight, I'm hoping that someone here on our Zoom needs the inspiration. They need that push off the ledge to start a company, or maybe take on a new hobby, learn to play the guitar or piano, or do something that scares them. And I hope that I can provide that inspiration. In 2008, I was lucky enough to have my first biological son, Jack. I was also raising my stepdaughter, Amber, who was living with us half the time. And I immediately knew, like right out of the gate, that being a mom was my most favorite job that I'd ever had in my entire life. And I said to myself, secretly, privately, I want to do this again. But I waited to talk to my husband about it. And about a year in, when I had a 1-year-old, I broached the subject with my husband. I wasn't getting any younger. And I said, hey, Jack, I think that we should have another baby. I was born as an only child, and I always wanted that partner in crime, the person to share life's sorrows with and their burdens. And Jack didn't buy it. He said, no, see, I have a beautiful daughter and a son. But I was like, babe, Amber's going to be in college someday, and we're going to be raising this little young man as an only child, and I don't want that for him. And sure enough, our daughter is a junior at UCSB, and I'm right in the zone right now. So I finally got him to agree, but he put a fence up. He said, we'll try for, I don't know, 3 months. And if at the end of that time, we don't have you're not pregnant, then we're just going to assume that this is the family that God wants us to have, and we're going to be okay with that, right? And I said, sure. So when 2 little pink lines appeared on my pregnancy test just days after that conversation, I knew that this baby was our destiny. I was so excited about it, and so was he. Well, 9 months later, my daughter Mia was born, and we learned shortly after her birth that she had Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a genetic anomaly. It occurs in about 1 out of every 700 births, and it impacts all areas of your life, your intellectual ability and development. There's some physical impacts associated with it. 50% of kids with Down syndrome have a congenital heart anomaly. And so the only word for it, and I'm sad to say this, is I was devastated. I felt guilty. I felt like instead of making my kids' lives better, maybe I was making them more challenging. And I had a husband who was getting his graduate degree in biblical counseling and Christian ministry in the hopes of being a pastor. And so the roles switched. He was saying, this is exactly the child that God wants us to have. And I was sitting on my couch wondering if God even existed. It was a really, really challenging time in our life. So with all of this emotional complexity, the simplest tasks felt so difficult. And I was reckoning with the fact that Mia couldn't breastfeed. And as a nurse and as a mom and an informed parent, I knew all of the benefits of breastfeeding, but Mia had hypotonia, which is low muscle tone. And the characteristic trait of breastfeeding is that you have to be able to effectively tongue thrust, and she couldn't do that. And I also wasn't producing milk because I was so stressed out. So I found myself as a formula feeding parent, somewhere I never thought I'd be. And so thus starts my story. One morning at 3 a.m., holding a crying and hungry baby in one arm, while struggling to assemble the contents of a bottle with my one free hand, I glanced at my coffee maker and said, oh, there's another thing in the world that's unfair. I can have coffee at the touch of a button. Poor Mia's sitting here and waiting for her bottle for 15 minutes. And so it was in that moment that the idea for Baby Barista was born. But I was sure, like most things in the year 2011, that something like this must already exist. So I did an exhaustive Google search, and I was shocked to learn that there is no automated bottle making solution currently on the market. So just to fill you in, if you're not a parent, bottle preparation is time consuming and it's aggravating. Traditional bottle making takes like 15 minutes per bottle. You have to go through all of these steps. So my idea was to eliminate all of those steps and to create a machine that would make the perfect bottle in under 30 seconds at just the touch of a button. And imagining solving this problem for babies like Mia and moms like me, all of a sudden granted me this greater purpose. And it took my mind off of the things that were causing me anxiety and all kinds of worry. I started by doing an exhaustive patent search. I got every patent that I could on anything that was like what I was trying to build. And I tried to understand, how do you write a patent? What does the language sound like? And so I took it on. I just sat down and, to the best of my ability, I wrote a patent. I sent that patent to a patent attorney in Northern California. He polished it up and made it pretty for me. He put together some line drawings, and we submitted it. And that was in 2011. Well, it took until 2014 to get that patent granted. If you know anything about the patent process, it's exhausting and it's slow and it's painful, but I considered it to be a great accomplishment. And what it did was it put a timestamp on my idea. So in the year 2014, I was able to raise enough money to engage the help of an engineering and design firm to build a look-alike, function-alike prototype of the Baby Barista machine. And let me tell you, we did exhaustive research. We went into parents' homes and we asked them a ton of questions about how they decide to buy products. We watched them make bottles to see what the bottle making process was like for different individuals. And we also asked them what the must-have features would be on the Baby Barista machine. And these interviews informed the features that were in our look-alike, functional-like prototype. And at this point, I was able to interject some of my nursing know-how and really fight for the build to be an aseptic machine. And also there were certain features that I had in mind that I wanted on the machine. Over the years in the ER, I had seen a disturbing pattern of injuries related to formula preparation. I saw thermal burns, electrolyte imbalances, seizures, water intoxication, digestive burdens, dehydration, all related to formula preparation. And so in short, bottle making was not just a painful process, it was dangerous business. And so I wanted to help the design firm and the engineers build a machine that would mitigate all of the health risks associated with formula feeding. But one day I was walking down the aisle in Target and boom, somebody had already put a product on the market. So I was really, really devastated. I had been working so hard and now I see this in the aisle of Target. But you know what? I knew about it because I had read the patent in 2011 and I knew that there were inherent flaws in this machine. And so I called one of my best friends, who's one of the smartest people I know, who has an MBA, and I said, Doug, you got to talk me off the ledge. This product is on the shelf at Target. I'm done, and he said, no, Cara, if you were in business school, you would know that there's something called second mover advantage. I said, well, that's a really, really fancy term, Doug, but what does it mean? He said, this means that you have the ability to respond to all of the inherent flaws in their system and perfect your machine to make it better. And so that gave me encouragement and it gave me some hope. So this system still exists. It's still on the market today. It's called Baby Barista, and it's a bulk powdered system. So you take a whole can of formula and you put it into that hopper that you can see on the top. But in order to avoid the risk of bacterial contamination, they make it incumbent on the user to disassemble and hand wash like 8 to 10 components after every 4th use. So in the early days of a baby's life, that means you're disassembling this thing, washing it, putting it together twice a day. That really negates any convenience that a machine offers. This is Baby Barista. It's not just a gorgeous solution in terms of what differentiates it from our competition, but it's designed to be an aseptic machine. So let me explain what that means. None of the formula ever touches the internal components of the machine. Instead, the formula is mixed and dispensed in this external chamber, and that's the only thing you have to wash. You disconnect it, you put it in the dishwasher, and you seamlessly reconnect it because it has a magnet attachment. There's no need to thread it. But once we solved the problem of making the perfect bottle, I soon realized that that wasn't solving all of the pain points of formula feeding. So we decided, our team did, to create an ecosystem, a fully developed ecosystem of products that would solve all of those pain points. So we sell the machine as a one-time purchase, and with it, we sell formula by subscription, which means no more putting baby in a dirty shopping cart. That formula is coming right to your door. And then all of this is controlled by an app, which enables mom and dad to prepare bottles from anywhere, even from bed at 3 a.m., manage their formula supply, and track their baby's feedings. And the result is an innovative customer experience, the likes of which no other formula brand can offer. So now it's the end of 2015. We have a fully functioning prototype. We have to find a formula partner. We still have further development on the machine to get to the point where we have what's called a BOM, and I'll talk about that later. And we still have to build an app. Any one of those three tasks is daunting in and of itself, but we were ready to do it. And then the unthinkable happened. My mom, who was my best friend in the whole world, my cheerleader, was diagnosed out of nowhere with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And she was taking care of my dad, who had pretty advanced dementia. My mom had just retired from a very responsible job with the County of Los Angeles. She retired at age 79. And now 2 years into her retirement, when she was supposed to be enjoying life, she was facing a terminal diagnosis. And so I did the most difficult thing that I've done in my whole life. I quit my job at the hospital, took a leave, and I became my mom and dad's private duty nurse. This was absolutely the privilege of my life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But as you can imagine, it was heart-wrenching. My mom was gone in 4 short months. And I was sitting at the breakfast table with my sweet dad, who was asking me 4 or 5 times a day, is mom at Trader Joe's? Did she go to Target? Is she visiting Aunt Marianne, who had passed away years before? And so I knew it was time for me to pack up the house that I grew up in. I'd only grown up in one house, and sell it, and sell my family, or my nuclear family's home, and buy a house that would be big enough to accommodate our family of 5, my dad, and a caregiver. And so my sweet dad passed away on the last day of 2017. But during that year, in all this chaos, I had an accident, and I fractured my wrist in 7 places, requiring a rod to be put in my arm. And this surgery made me question my ability to go back to the emergency room and be an effective caregiver. But I rehabbed my arm to the point where it was fully functional and I could go back. And then I had to make a very important decision. Was I gonna take on the job of becoming a CEO of Baby Barista, or was I gonna stick with the safe route of being a nurse? And I could hear my parents shouting from heaven, go back to the hospital. They have a 401k and medical benefits. But my heart was like, no, don't take the safe route, become an entrepreneur. And so that's what I did. And I soon learned that there were 5 lessons that I had learned in the ER. I didn't know it at the time, that helped me to slide into my role seamlessly as a CEO. And I'd like to share those lessons with you tonight. The first one is remain calm and clear-headed in the face of chaos. Now, on the surface, emergency room chaos looks a lot different than CEO chaos, but both jobs require you to be calm and collected in the face of millions of distractions. And in both environments, you have to compartmentalize and remain laser focused. I realized that in the ER, I had developed the ability to tune out distractions when things were really, really stressful. And I did this with practice and intention. And I also learned the lesson that you have to release what you can't control. Now, I had to keep a clear head in that code room, and now I had to keep a clear head in the boardroom. And if you don't know what a code room is, or what a code blue is, that's when you receive a patient that is pulseless and you're literally using everything in your arsenal to bring that person back to life. Now, I remember my first code, and I think every nurse probably remembers their first code. I was a brand new nurse, and I was working in the emergency room, but I had yet to have that moment, and the red phone rang, and they said there was a 40-something-year-old man who was out walking his dog at the dog park. He collapsed, and he was in full cardiac arrest, and he was headed towards my treatment room. Well, I was with a bunch of seasoned nurses who were like still eating a bagel or something when that news came in, but I was so nervous. And the doctor looked at me with pity and said, Cara, you have one job, and that's to put the blood pressure cuff on this man's arm, hit the button on the monitor, and when that blood pressure comes up, I want you to call out the number. That's all you have to do. So I was like, okay, I can handle that. So in comes this patient into room 5, I'll never forget it. And I'm ready to do my job and all pumped up, and I've got my blood pressure cuff in the hand, and I look down and the man is an amputee. He has no arm. And I was like, oh, okay. So in that moment, I had to pivot. And what pivoting looked like that morning was handing the blood pressure cuff across the gurney to a nurse that had an arm to affix it to. But that comes to my second point, my second lesson, and it's important. And I'm trying to get my second point up and it's not coming for some weird reason. Oh, there it is. Pivot quickly and smoothly. In the emergency room, sometimes the team can be doing everything that the doctor's asking them to do or everything that we think is right, and the patient's still at imminent risk. And in those moments, especially as nurses, we have to know when to raise the red flag, and we have to have confidence and speak up because it's a matter of life and death, and we're advocating for our patient. Well, thankfully, pivots in business are rarely matters of life and death, but still, they make you think flexibly, they have you trust your gut, and they ask you to remove your ego. Timing is critical in both areas. Pivoting too soon or too late, those both can become fatal flaws. So knowing the difference between an obstacle that can be overcome and one that can't is really a key to entrepreneurial success. I'm struggling with I don't know, there we go. Okay, point number 3, utilize critical thinking skills. A lot of people mistakenly think that nurses just follow doctor's orders. They just check boxes. I have to tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. And nurses are some of the smartest people that I've ever met and worked with. They're called on to accurately interpret, analyze, and evaluate information that's coming at them a million miles a minute and reach conclusions. And those conclusions dictate appropriate clinical action. So similarly, a CEO has to look at scenarios from multiple angles and imagine several different ways to solve a problem. You have to think systematically, you have to think openly, and you have to uncover solutions that will expand opportunities for success. Number 5, which is probably the most important one, is that teamwork counts. Nobody saved a life by themselves, and nobody has successfully run a company without a successful team. And so I am so fortunate to have my core team at Baby Barista. They're just amazing, and they help me to problem solve, and there's no egos involved. They wear a ton of different hats, and it's just incredible to be on a team that's effective. I'm so happy that I am, but I think I skipped number 4, so I'm gonna go back. Number 4 is that triage skills matter. I don't know if you know what triage is or not, but triage means to sort. And nurses, a triage nurse is probably the first nurse that you've seen in the emergency room if you've ever visited an ER. And he or she has to say, in the face of limited resources, who gets medical care first, right? Who's the most critical patient? Well, in the same way, a CEO has to know what needs to be addressed immediately and what can wait. And in our case, it's always in the face of limited resources. So those are my 5 lessons that I learned. Sorry, I'm having a really hard time switching slides. I apologize. Oh, there we go. Okay, so all of a sudden, it became clear to me that Baby Barista is in a David and Goliath situation. The formula industry it's an oligopoly, and it's controlled by 4 major players. 2 of them are big pharmaceutical companies. The other one is Nestle, and Perrigo does all the white labeling and private labeling of formula. And so it really became apparent that we were facing giants. An oligopoly is a state of limited competition in which a market is shared by a small number of producers. And in this case, it, as I mentioned, is controlled by the 4 players, and that encompass about like 87% of the market share in 2020. These companies were largely founded in the 19th and 20th century. And because of this market concentration, they haven't had to really innovate And so consequently, parents are still making bottles. Moms are doing the same routine as a mom was in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. And to me, that is just crazy that we haven't figured out how to successfully innovate the formula space. But I think that Baby Barista is uniquely positioned to take on these giants for a few reasons. The strength of our internal team, the relationships that can be accessed by our board of advisors, and the quality strategic partnerships that we've been so fortunate to develop. The global infant formula market is massive and it's growing, but we decided that our best approach would be just to focus on the United States market exclusively. So I want to share some of those numbers with you tonight. The total addressable market, and that means babies that are both formula fed and breastfed, is $5.2 billion. About half of that market consists of known infant formula sales, or $2.7 billion. And I'm so sorry, my slide is not populating. There it is, okay. And so we are going after, there we go. We're going after the $1 billion liquid formula category, which is the fastest growing category of formula that's expected to reach $1.5 billion by 2026. Baby Barista has had a lot of neat things happen recently that I want to share with you since I've become CEO. We were featured on California by Design, which was a show that was on a CBS affiliate. They took the best 30 innovations from California and they ranked them, and we were a series finalist making top 10. We were also featured in Fast Company magazine, USA Today, and AngelCon. We won the Audience Choice Award, and that's an event that's put on by Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So all of the problems that I talked about before my parents got sick, we still have to face them, and this is how we're facing them. The one thing that I hear over and over again is that hardware is hard. Like every VC says, oh, well, we don't like hardware is hard. And so we said, okay, well, in the face of limited resources, how do we make hardware not so hard? So we applied to and got accepted to the Aero certification program. Aero is a Fortune 500 company. They have about $27 billion in annual revenue. And they have provided us with a dedicated engineer to attend all of our manufacturing meetings and walk us through the whole certification process. And at the end of this process, we're going to have a fully developed BOM, or bill of materials, that is certified by Aero. What a bill of materials is like the recipe to make a consumer product. So it calls out every widget, every component, every circuit board that's in a consumer electronic product. When you hand that BOM to a manufacturer, they know exactly how to assemble the whole thing. And so that certification is a signal to manufacturing companies that basically we have all of our ducks in our row, and that our BOM is healthy, and that every component is going to have a long life, and that the machine is going to function seamlessly. Another thing that I'm excited about is that when we're co-branding a formula with a particular identified formula partner that has a wonderful organic stage 1 infant formula. But all of that process has to be guided by science. And so we have engaged Timothy Mork, who got his PhD from Cornell, and he's worked with Mead Johnson and Nestle and Abbott Laboratories in senior positions. And he's so excited to help guide our formula development process. It's also really important that everything is patented. I'm proud of our IP portfolio. I've come a long way since I was writing my own little patent and trying to figure it out. We have a patent on the design of our machine, and then we also have a utility patent that covers many of the features that I talked about already. Well, Mia, my why, she has accomplished so much in her own right. She is fully included in school, And she has modeled for Tommy Hilfiger and Walmart and Target in inclusive campaigns. I'm so excited that the entertainment industry is finally opening the doors to people that are differently abled and look different, because I can't share with you how exciting it is for somebody with Down syndrome to see somebody else with Down syndrome in a print ad or a television ad. She surfs, she rock climbs, she's just defying all the odds. And she was the first person with Down syndrome to ever appear on The View. In 2018, I was fortunate enough to be honored as a fearless mom on ABC's television show, The View. And when we researched it, we realized that she was the first person ever with Down syndrome to be on that program. I could just sit here and talk about Mia's accomplishments all night, but my point is that my daughter is my why, and she's inspired me to fight a lot of different kinds of giants, but certainly the giants in my business, and to spread the word that anybody can defy the odds that people stack against them. So I'm not afraid of the giants that our team faces when we commercialize the Baby Barista machine. We've got a great team of executives and experts, as I mentioned, and we've got the manufacturing piece covered. And so I think we're in a great position. But I want to talk a little bit about the fire in my belly, or what gets me out of bed in the morning. I really want to weave disability advocacy and fighting for the underdog into the DNA of the Baby Barista brand. We recognize that the average machine is going to be in use for about 17 months. And that's based on the metric that every US household has an average of 1.9 children. I've always wondered what that 0.9 kid looks like. But, and so we started to think, well, what's going to happen to our decommissioned machines? And I have a super big passion for parents that engage in foster care. And with the growing opiate crisis in America, that is so sad. As of 2017, 325,000 children were living in foster care because of an opioid addicted parent. And if this trend continues, which gosh, we pray that it doesn't, 4.3 million kids are going to have an opioid addicted parent by the year 2030. So a donation program is definitely in the works. We're also talking to this amazing young lady who has a nonprofit called Hearts of Joy International. And what I shared with you earlier is true, that 50% of kids with Down syndrome are born with a congenital heart defect. So this young lady has started an organization that reaches out to 5 countries. And, you know, the sad part is that in the third world, people falsely believe that Down syndrome is a curse and that kids are demon possessed. And so they don't know a lot about genetic anomalies or anything. And so she's going into these countries, she's educating parents, and she's talking to them about the heart problems that their kids might have. And then she's actually fixing those heart problems, providing life-saving surgeries to these kids. And so it makes me so excited to think about partnering with an organization like that. So I was right. Those pink lines were definitely our destiny. And my husband was right in the fact that Mia was hand-selected for our family. Fighting for a safe breastfeeding alternative for moms and babies has become my passion, but I never realized that I'd be solving this problem now for a new generation of parents. And as the old expression goes, necessity is the mother of invention. And my innovation was born out of my own necessity. But there are all kinds of amazing women out there that are solving big and complex problems, so much more complex than the problem I was solving. So I want to talk just for a second about the state of female entrepreneurship for women today. And I want to start with a couple of fun facts. Can you guess which state and city females are most successful at receiving venture capital funding? The answer is Brooklyn, New York. So I think a shout out to RBG is in order there. I think she's from Brooklyn. And then the state that has the least VC funding, like 0% deals, is Texas. So I guess we can officially say that not everything is bigger in Texas. 2 facts that bring a smile to my face are that 21%, there's been an increase of 21% in 2019 in women-owned businesses, and that women-owned businesses rose 8% while the national average was 1.8%. So we are making good strides. But here's the part that makes me make this face, that makes me grimace. Funding opportunities for female founders remain really, really grim. Just 2% of all venture capital in the US went to companies founded solely by women. That keeps me up at night. The story is about the same when measured by deal count. Roughly 4.4% of VC transactions in the last year were for female founded companies. So like everything in the world, we have to be the change. We have to be the authors of that change. And like Gandhi famously said, be the change that you wish to see in the world. This is what my world looked like in 2015. I was the only woman in the room, and my gosh, was I happy to be there. But as I have taken my destiny into my own hands, I have two fearless females sitting by my side. I look up to these ladies so much. They push me daily to become a better version of myself. This was also true in my nursing career. I can think back to women and men nurses that I just absolutely marveled at, that made me work harder. They made me faster. They made me more discreet in my practice. And I will never forget their work ethics. And I would trust my kids with my kids' lives with them and my own life with them. I think one of my favorite quotes is this one from John Wooden, who said, "It takes time to create excellence, but if it could be done quickly, more people would be doing it." So when I get hung up on the fact that this has taken me so many years, I think back to that quote. And my mom always said many times, where there's a will, there's a way. And I've spent the last decade strengthening my will to find my way. A life circumstance that seemed daunting at first has given me the courage to face the giants. Over the years, I've become really comfortable with my role as a special needs parent. I've dedicated myself to being a fierce advocate for the Down syndrome community. People with intellectual disabilities fight battles for acceptance in society. They fight battles for inclusive education and employment, and they're generally underestimated and misunderstood. These human beings, they're battling against their own biology, inherent biases in the system that have been put in place to keep them separate from their typically developing peers. And I want to remind you tonight that separate is not equal. I gave birth to my destiny. I'm committed to fighting to level the playing field, not only for infants that are unable to breastfeed, but for the disabled, the marginalized, and the true underdogs in our society. You see, what I didn't realize at 3 a.m. when I was holding my baby and struggling to assemble that bottle was that I was holding my hero, my best friend, my inspiration, and a true giant in my arms. Thank you so much for letting me share my story.
Thank you, Cara. Everyone, there is a virtual reaction. There we go. Some people are doing it at the bottom.
Thank you very much, Cara. That was wonderful and so inspiring and such a great example for all of us. So here's your opportunity. Who has a question? No question. There've got to be questions.
I have a question just in terms of data, because I didn't catch the number. Oh, so what is the percentage of the market that's owned by Abbott, Nestle, Matt Johnson?
Oh, it's 86.3%.
Oh God, 86. Okay, I was thinking about 60. So wow, yeah, 86 is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question in the chat box. What was the biggest challenge that you had to face as a woman in your journey?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, oh gosh, I want to be thoughtful about how I answer this. I think it was just fighting for my voice to be heard. I think I'm a very kind person, and sometimes kindness is mistaken for weakness in a lot of situations. And so while I've always faced, my male counterparts in a very kind way. I think sometimes that was seen as weak, and I'm trying to work on that and have them see that just because I'm kind, I'm not a weak person.
Yeah, one way that manifests itself is we talk about self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That women very often struggle with it, and men have an overabundance of it. Do you find that self-confidence is an issue?
Yeah, my confidence has really grown incrementally over the years. But I think another thing to your point is that women aren't taught to talk about their accomplishments because it's really seen as being boastful. And so we take this position of humility and being humble when men will tell you all the great things that they did. and you remember that. But so I've been trying to put myself out there more and talk about the accomplishments because they're there, but we just are culturally, it's ingrained in us not to talk about how good we're doing.
Okay, we have a question in the chat box from Professor Dan Vo of Cal Lutheran. So his question's on the competition. One would think that the easiest route is to partner with the giants, as opposed to fighting them in what could be an uphill and difficult battle. Why take the David position?
Well, I think that I'm just taking it temporarily. To go into an Infamil or a Similac or a Nestle and have an unproven technology, there's really no upside for them to put their formula product into an unproven technology. And so what I have found is that there are a lot of startups and even some fairly well-developed companies that are solving this problem. They see the giants and they want to face off against them. They want to create clean formula products that the giants aren't putting out there. We're seeing this movement in the market where women are going to Europe and they're taking formula that the FDA doesn't approve and they're shipping it home in like boxfuls. And so there are startups, and the company that we're working with has been in existence since 1999 and has only produced toddler milks, but they're finally dipping their toes into the stage 1 infant formula space. It's very, very expensive to build a formula from the ground up. And so I feel like once we get traction, then the big four are going to be like, oh, hey, and maybe want to put their formula into my product, but I feel like I have to do the work first.
So maybe there's a little bit of an innovator's dilemma situation here too, where even if you tried to partner with them, they're not going to listen because they don't think that you represent a threat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who else? You can raise your hand the old-fashioned way too, just on video. And okay, we have another one on. We have a couple. So one is when you were taking the leap from nurse to CEO, how did you manage the financial impact and decision from losing a steady paycheck and the 401k?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, thankfully, my husband, he was still working. We had to pull things in a bit. And to be totally transparent and truthful, it took losing my parents to be in a secure enough position to be able to take on this task. So it's like the irony is that I wish they were here to see all of this success, but without them exiting, I couldn't have done it.
And where and when can we buy one?
Well, we're going to launch as a direct-to-consumer business. We think it's super important to develop that relationship with our customer and to learn all about what our customer desires before we launch into retail. That being said, we have made contact with 5 major North American retailers, and they've all expressed genuine interest in placing Baby Barista on their shelves. So we're anticipating a 2022 launch. Direct to consumer initially, and then becoming an omni-channel brand.
Excellent. Does the machine work with other formula?
Yeah, so This has been sort of one of our dilemmas, right? So if you make this machine formula agnostic and you allow mom and dad, if we develop something where mom and dad could pour the concentrate in themselves into the machine, you're sacrificing the sterility. And so our formula comes in a pouch that is FDA approved or non-objected to, and that single serving assures the sterility of the formula. So no, you cannot use it except for with our formula.
Okay. Wonderful. So can everyone turn their cameras on?
I think we want to do a group picture.
We want to do a group picture, and I want to give Cara a round of applause that doesn't involve an emoji.
Oh,
So just like this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And remember, this is a local company, folks. So someday you're going to see that news story in Fortune or Forbes, and you're going to say, "I was there. I was there."
Thank you, Mike.
When it started. Okay, so I think we've got as many cameras as, so we have to take a group. This is like a technological selfie.
I'll count to 3 and then everyone can make a funny face or a normal face. Okay.
It is my face.
1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Thank you very much. You'll make Gerhard happy if you know Gerhard. He loves pictures. Okay, just a couple more things to wrap up. If I can show you a couple more slides. One is just a reminder who we are. Cal Lutheran, the Center for Innovation Entrepreneurship. The innovation is new. We added that to our name to reflect a broader mission, and we're a part of the School of Management. And you all heard we got a new president, President Lori Varlata. Boy, I can tell you just from being in a couple of meetings with her, she is a force of nature, and I think you're really gonna love what she brings to Cal Lutheran. I see we have a raised hand from Jan. Where'd she go? Okay, I may have sent her away by mistake.
I may have been an accident.
Yeah.
There she is. She's back. Jan, did you want to say something? Oh, you're muted.
Amazing.
It's okay.
Cara,
Now-
it was absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you, Jan.
Just loved it. Thank you so much. Beautiful presentation. Information was just awesome. You did a fabulous job.
Thank you, Jan.
So Cara's passion for women entrepreneurs is it's admirable. It's a little sad that in this day and age we still have to talk about it, but those statistics she put up are real, and it's something we have to work on. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, this presentation was part of a global movement that is centered at Montclair State University in New Jersey, Weekly Women Entrepreneurship. Kristen, are we going to put the link in the chat box? But there are events going on around the world all week. Montclair State is recording the presentations by their women founders. Whenever you see a woman entrepreneur speaking or needs help, please help. And I get this question sometimes from men, should I come to these events? Well, of course you should. You're half the solution at least. So this applies regardless. Women entrepreneurs face special challenges, and we want everyone to be able to have this opportunity to be a founder. Okay, so make sure you check that out. Thanks all for coming. I hope the drive wasn't too bad. we've catered the event. Just go to your kitchen, open up the refrigerator, and take anything you want. October 14th, November 11th, and December 9th, we'll be announcing our speakers soon. You can look for Cara's talk soon on the YouTube channel for the School of Management. You'll get an email when it's available. Please share it with your friends. Share it with people who you think might be able to help. If you happen to know a venture capitalist, sometimes all it takes is a personal recommendation. But thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you soon.